The sound of the garage door opening was my 5-minute warning. It was a sound that should have been normal, the familiar end to a workday. But in our house, it was a starting pistol. My heart would immediately kick into a frantic rhythm, a frantic drum against my ribs. I'd take one last frantic look around the living room. Were the pillows perfectly fluffed? Was there a single dust bunny under the coffee table? Was the remote control aligned perfectly with the edge of the TV stand? "It has to be perfect, Sarah," David would tell me. "A clean home is a sign of a well-ordered mind. And your mind, well, it needs all the order it can get." He'd say it with a smile that never reached his eyes, a smile that was for anyone who might be watching. But I knew what it meant. It meant I was failing. I was always failing. That evening started like so many others. I heard his key in the lock. He never used the garage door coming home. He liked the dramatic entrance through the front door. I was at the stove stirring the Alfredo sauce, his favorite. "Sarah, I'm home," he called out, his voice flat. "In the kitchen, honey," I called back, forcing a brightness into my tone that I never felt. He walked in, dropping his briefcase by the door. He didn't kiss me hello anymore. Instead, his eyes, a cold, flinty gray, did their usual inventory of the room. They scanned the counters, the floor, me. He walked over to the stove, peered into the pot, and sniffed. "You used the cheap Parmesan," he stated. It wasn't a question. "The store was out of the block kind you like," I said, my voice trembling slightly. "I'm sorry," he sighed, a long, suffering sound. "You don't even try, do you? It's just one thing. One simple thing." He picked up the wooden spoon I'd been using and pointed it at me. "This is why you'll never be partner material. You lack attention to detail." I looked down at the floor, my cheeks burning. I had a good job as a paralegal, a job I'd been proud of before I married him. Now he used it as another weapon. The attack didn't come then. It came later, after a silent dinner where the only sound was the clinking of forks. I was loading the dishwasher, my back to him. He was watching the news. "You didn't separate the whites," he said from the couch. I froze, a plate in my hand. "What?" "The laundry." I checked. "You put a red towel in with my white dress shirts." "You've ruined them." I turned around. "David, I didn't do a load of whites today. I only did darks." His face darkened. He stood up and the air in the room changed. It became thick, charged with a violence I knew all too well. "Are you calling me a liar?" he asked, his voice dangerously quiet. "No, I'm just saying." That's when he crossed the room. The first shove sent me stumbling back against the kitchen counter. The second was a closed fist punch to my ribs that drove the air from my lungs. I crumpled to the floor, gasping. He didn't stop. He never stopped with just one. Kicks followed, aimed at my legs, my back. A final, stinging slap across my face for good measure. He stood over me, breathing heavily. "Stupid bitch," he spat. "Look at this mess. Clean it up." Then he walked away, upstairs to his home office as if he'd just taken out the trash. I lay on the cold tile, sobbing quietly. This was my life. A cycle of perfection, failure, and punishment. For 3 years, I thought about my sister Emily. We hadn't spoken in over a year. David said she was a bad influence. I thought about my friends, all slowly faded out of my life. I was so alone. But that night, as a sharp pain shot through my side with every breath, something broke. A tiny final crack in the wall of fear he'd built around me. It was a thought, clear and simple. I would rather die than live like this for one more day. The next morning, he left for work, all charm and smiles. "Have a good day, sweetheart. Don't forget, the Realtors Association dinner is tonight. Wear the blue dress." He kissed my forehead, and I had to fight not to flinch. The moment his car disappeared down the street, I moved. My body screamed in protest, but I ignored it. I found my old duffel bag in the back of the closet and started stuffing it. I didn't take much. Clothes, my passport, the emergency cash I'd been secretly skimming from the grocery money for months. I went to his office and found the important documents, the deed, the insurance papers. I wasn't sure why I took them, just a gut feeling that he would use them to control me if I left them behind. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely dial. But I did it. I called my sister, "Emily?" I whispered when she answered. "Sarah?" "Oh my God, Sarah, is that you?" Her voice was filled with immediate concern. "I need help," I choked out. Can you come get me?" She didn't ask questions. "Give me your address." "I'm leaving now." I gave her the address she'd never been allowed to visit. She lived 2 hours away. I had time. I sat on the bed, the duffel bag at my feet, and waited. The clock ticked. Every sound from the street made me jump. What if he came home? What if he'd forgotten something? And then it happened. A wave of dizziness so intense the room swam. The stress, the lack of sleep, the pain from my injuries, it all crashed down on me at once. The last thing I remember was the world tilting sideways, and the sound of my own head hitting the nightstand as I fell. I woke up to the steady beep of a heart monitor and the stark white ceiling of a hospital room. Panic seized me instantly. Where was I? How long had I been out? Then I saw him. David was sitting in a chair beside my bed, holding my hand. His grip was too tight. "Oh, baby, you're awake," he said, his voice a syrupy simulacrum of relief. He leaned forward, his eyes drilling into mine. "You gave me such a scare. You took a terrible fall down the stairs." He squeezed my hand harder, a clear, unspoken command. "Play along." My eyes darted to the doctor, a woman with a calm demeanor and a sharp, intelligent gaze. Her badge read Dr. Imani Jones. "Mrs. Miller," Dr. Jones said, her tone neutral. "You're in the hospital. You have a concussion, 2 fractured ribs, and some significant bruising. Can you tell me what you remember about your fall?" I opened my mouth. David's thumb dug into the back of my hand, a silent threat. I could feel the words he wanted me to say. I fell, I was dizzy, I'm so clumsy, lodged in my throat. But I also saw the way Dr. Jones was looking at me. She wasn't just looking at my current injuries. Her eyes were cataloging the faint yellow-green remnants of an old bruise on my jawline, the way I instinctively pulled my arm away from David's touch. I looked from his pleading, menacing face to her patient, knowing one, and I made a choice. My voice was a dry, cracked whisper. I don't remember falling." David's smile tightened, but he didn't let it slip. "The doctor said memory loss is common, sweetheart." "It's okay." Dr. Jones nodded slowly. "It is common." She then turned to David. "Mr. Miller, I need to run some additional neurological tests. Would you mind giving us some privacy? You can wait in the family lounge down the hall." I felt David's whole body stiffen. "I'd really prefer to stay." "I'm afraid it's necessary for the tests," Dr. Jones said, her voice leaving no room for argument. She held the door open. He had no choice. He let go of my hand, giving me one last desperate look that promised a world of pain, and walked out. The door swung shut with a soft click. The moment it closed, Dr. Jones pulled a stool right up to my bedside. The professional mask softened into one of pure, unwavering compassion. "Sarah," she said, using my first name. "The door is closed. There is a security guard stationed right outside. You are safe. My only job right now is to make sure you are okay. The injuries you have, they aren't consistent with a simple fall. Can you tell me how you really got them?" The kindness in her voice was my undoing. The dam broke. I told her everything. I told her about the dry pot roast and the red towel that never existed. I told her about the punches, the kicks, the constant criticism. I told her about the duffel bag and my sister coming to save me. I told her about 3 years of living in a prison of my own home. I talked until I was hoarse, until the tears were streaming down my face unchecked. Dr. Jones listened, never interrupting, just letting the horrible truth spill out into the sterile, safe room. When I was finally spent, she placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. "You are one of the bravest people I have ever met," she said softly. "You are not alone anymore." She stood up. She didn't go to the machine to run tests. She went to the door and spoke quietly to the security guard. Then she picked up the phone on the wall. "This is Dr. Jones in 3004. I need a social worker and a patient advocate, stat. And please notify the police. We have a GSI case, level 3. The suspected perpetrator is a male in the West waiting room named David Miller." The relief that washed over me was so profound it was like a physical force. I started sobbing, great, heaving sobs that shook my broken ribs. They weren't sobs of pain anymore. They were sobs of release. They arrested David in the waiting room. I heard his outraged shouts echoing down the hall. "This is ridiculous. My wife fell. She's confused. You can't do this." But they could. And they did. My sister, Emily, arrived an hour later, frantic with worry. She held me while I cried, and she held my hand through the interviews with the police and the social worker. That was the beginning of my new life. I never went back to that house. Emily took me in without a second thought. With the help of a victim's advocate, I got a permanent restraining order against David. I started therapy to untangle the knots of fear and self-doubt he'd tied inside me. The legal process was long. David fought the charges, of course. But the evidence was overwhelming. Dr. Jones's testimony, the photographic evidence of my old and new injuries, the duffel bag the police found at the house, which proved I was trying to leave. He eventually took a plea deal and was sentenced to 5 years in prison. It's been a year now. I have my own small apartment. I got a promotion at work. I'm rebuilding relationships with my friends. Some days are still hard. I sometimes still jump at a slamming door or have a nightmare. But the fear is no longer a constant companion. I am Sarah Miller. But I'm not the Sarah Miller who was a victim. I am a survivor. My story isn't just about the pain I endured. It's about the moment I found my voice in a quiet hospital room and the chain of good people, a sister, a doctor, a social worker, who helped me reclaim my life. If you are in the dark place I was in, please know this. Your voice matters. Your safety matters. You are worth saving. And there are hands waiting to help you, if you can just find the courage to reach for them.